On today's show, Jason Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks are running out of excuses. This team has to find a way to win games. So what went wrong in the Sixers game and more? We'll talk about that on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Stop dancing, Reggie. This is not a dancing day.
The music's just so good.
It's not a dancing show.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On Mavs your first listen today. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, leave a 5-star review, like the video, and comment anything below. Don't take your frustration out on the show. Still like the show. Comment, interact with it, share it. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And joining me from 105.3 The Fan, I have footloosed him and making him stop dancing. What you got for me, Reggie Adetula?
I was so close to completely forgetting that this game was going to be played at all.
So did the Mavs. You and the Mavs both.
I was about to say, I would have been in the same boat as Dallas Mavericks in some ways.
Oh my gosh. We will talk about the Mavs lost to the Philadelphia 76ers 120-116. Team without Embiid, DeAnthony Melton, Robert Covington, bunch of guys out for them. The Mavs fully healthy, second game fully healthy, 0-2 fully healthy. We were all waiting for weeks and weeks. When will this team be fully healthy? When will we see everybody? And then now here we are. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Mavs' sense of urgency. I asked Kidd about that after the fact. I asked Kidd 2 questions. He answered one of them, and he didn't answer the second one. And I wish it would have been reversed, but we got the one answer. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what went wrong against the Sixers. But we got to start here. They're running out of excuses. Because right now, you're in a spot in the Western Conference where you have a bad week like they just had. Like, you fall out. They're going to be, the Warriors are going to lose to the Celtics, by the way.
Are they going to lose?
The Celtics loss does not look bad at all, considering that it was 82-38 at halftime. The Warriors were down. So when the Warriors lose to the Celtics, then the Mavs will be a game and a half above the Warriors and Lakers for 9-10 in the play-in. 9-10 at this point. And the Mavs cannot just keep losing games like this. You want the credit to be, all right, why don't national outlets talk about the Mavericks? Why don't they give them credit? Okay, they start giving them credit, and all of a sudden the Mavs look like this and have this awful, terrible, no good week. And so I start looking at it and say, all right, the excuses are starting to run out. Jason Kidd benched Tim Hardaway Jr. in the second half. He plays 14 minutes total. 14 minutes, 31 seconds. He was a -6. So it's not like they got destroyed in the minutes that he was playing either. He plays not a lot. Josh Green was not playing that well. So he kind of gets benched. And Derrick Jones Jr. was played a little bit more. I thought those were the right, levers to pull in this. But then Exum doesn't play any. Your centers kind of struggled. You had to do something else. It just feels like this team is kind of running out of excuses and reasons. And now I start to look at Jason Kidd and go, all right, this is another game where your team was more talented, was playing at home, was coming off of a bad loss and a couple of bad losses here. And you had to respond, and they didn't get the response or the energy out of the gate after they started up 11-0. And then after that, the energy just fell completely flat. And who does that fall on? Where does that energy supposed to come from?
Oh, this is where I begin talking, huh? Because wow, that's quite the question.
Just dropped it off in your lap, Reggie. Right, you're the radio professional here of the two of us who should be ready for the bomb to be dropped.
I'm playing a road game here. You got to remember that.
I threw you that pass with 0.2 left on the shot clock.
Thanks for the grenade. I will see if I can do something with it. No, I mean, look. The energy was noticeably a problem. And I felt like, and tell me if you think that this was a factor. I felt like a large factor of it was the refs seemed to have a relatively light whistle. And the whistle also did not feel like it favored the Mavs, right? To what degree you can go with. And when that happens, this Mavs team seems to completely lose their composure.
Still.
To this
How can they still be doing this is where all right. I'm gonna break some of my rules of like let your guests talk.
No, go ahead. I'm along the ride.
This is why I get to the point where I'm like, all right, it's at this point a loss like this is on Jason Kidd, because you build to games like this. You build to moments like this where your team is supposed to take care of business, right? You build to those moments. You earn moments where you're supposed to take care of business and win those games. And Mavs have won some of those games. And then you get to some of them where it's like, all right, weird start time. Starts at noon. Reggie's not even ready for the game. You know, it's like you get to that point. All right, come out of the gate, 11-0 start. All right, we're feeling good about ourselves. And then all of a sudden it falls flat. And a coach is not just, to me, a minutes and game plan vending machine where you just walk up to him and he just says, all right, here's the minutes for today. Here's when you're going to play and when you're going to play. And here's the game plan, and then back up. You've got to build towards these things. You've got to know your personnel and know what makes them tick and know what makes them work. It's one of the reasons why I love the Ted Lasso show so much. And honestly, one of the reasons why we love any movie about a coach. Like Clear Eyes, Full Hearts, Can't Lose. We love the Coach Carter. You love the Glory Road. Like I love all the Hoosiers. I mean, damn, name a coach movie, like a sports movie about a coach where they find a way to motivate their players. And like, it's just... It just is not there with Jason Kidd. And it's not about motivating professionals. I get that. Oh, these guys should come out and be ready. It's about knowing what makes your players tick and pulling the right levers to get them to give you what you need in a game like this. And he just has not built that up. And so you bring up the refs, and you're completely right to say that the refs got in their heads again. Luka gets another technical. I think that's 14 on the season. He's 2 away from getting suspended for a game, and that they can't afford that. And so, and to me, from my vantage point, it felt like them complaining to the refs, Luka especially, and then the rest included, felt like they got worse calls throughout the game as it went on, because either the refs have thin skin or whatever, they're sick of hearing from him or whatever, and it happens again, and then the Mavs hang their head. Oh, their offense, their threes aren't going down, even though they shot 40% from 3, and the refs aren't giving them the right calls, so they hang their head. Again, we're doing this again? Like, who is coaching this team? Who is getting this team to the point where that's not a problem anymore? And here we are, like 3 years into this problem.
Yeah, I don't know what to do necessarily in that place, because in some ways, like, there is the personal responsibility of this, right? Like, and that's, I'm certain that is the Jason Kidd perspective, is that, look, man, these guys need to be able to engender that from within. They need to be able to build that from within. But to some extent, and we've talked about this before, that can't continue to be the response when it's not ultimately producing the result, right? And I guess if I had the complete answer to this, I would be somewhere coaching a team myself. But that ended up being a big issue here, because, and I don't know, did we say this already? Like, this is a team in the Sixers that typically turns teams over a good amount. And you had a game where ultimately you shot decently, right? Some of the players that you needed to shoot well did not shoot well individually, but like ultimately all the way around, you shot pretty well. The game was lost in these turnovers. Yes. And that also was like a not on your P's and Q's portion of this. They were not executing, like playing a good basketball game. And somewhere within the mentality of this team, they were not properly prepared or ready for this game. Like, I don't even know how much we can do they overlooked this team or what have you. But ultimately, the way that they played, they got outworked. I mean, there were points in this game where you made all these moves to be able to have size, and Paul Reed and Mo Bamba are out rebounding and getting boards over top of your bigger new look Mavs lineup. So like something is not like this. Definitely isn't. We are playing to our maximum ability, right? And that is inherently a problem at this time of year going into what you're trying to achieve. Like, that's an issue.
It's an issue. They've been dealing with it all season. And they've been dealing with it throughout Jason Kidd's coaching tenure, it feels like, at this point, where there are just these games. And yeah, these games are going to happen. Can't happen at this moment. And so coming up, let's talk about exactly what went wrong against the Sixers. And then later we'll talk about their sense of urgency. Where is it? And what changes can be made going forward. We'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can go and get into sports and get into the game. Go check out FanDuel.com/lockedon. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150, just $5 on anything. It doesn't have to be a money line anymore. Just $5. So go check it out right now. Oh my God. right now, you can bet in game Celtics minus 48.5 on that game. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be over, but that is hilarious. But a good example of what you can do in game. You can, like, if all of a sudden the Mavs go on a run and you're like, oh, the Mavs are 100% winning this game, you can put a $5 bet on them to win. 48.5 is insane in-game spread. That is so funny to me. Go check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, you get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's just $5. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with the show. We've got the Locked On Sports Dallas 24/7 stream on YouTube and Amazon Fire. You can go watch some of the other shows. Locked On Cowboys. Do the Cowboys have anything going on, Reggie? Are they like in the news for anything?
Yeah, there's a couple of things.
Always. So Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Rangers, all that stuff. Locked On Sports Dallas 24/7 stream on Locked On Sports Dallas YouTube channel as well as Amazon Fire. All right, Reggie, let's talk about this game actually, because they're running out of excuses. Jason Kidd is running out of excuses for I think his team and the job and all that. But in this game, you mentioned the turnovers killed him. I think the turnovers you can overcome that. I think that problem shouldn't have sunk them. If they had executed in other areas, I think they could have won the game. But you can overcome, 17 turnovers, 25 points off turnovers. That's pretty bad. Like, that's pretty bad for the Mavericks. Mavericks average 12 turnovers a game. So like 5 more turnovers. That to me is like not a crippling, terrible problem. It was a problem, and it was bad in this game. I think it can be overcome though in a game like this. Their defensive rotations are not good enough. They haven't been good enough for a couple of weeks now. I mean, since they started playing good teams after the 7-game win streak, their rotations have just not been good enough. And some of that is new players, new system, and all that. Like, sure, you take that. But I think their rotations are not good enough, which allowed like Tobias Harris to just get open in the corner time and time and time again. He had 28 points and like an easy 28 points where he went 11 of 19. It was just taking jumpers all over the place here and there. The Mavs were just helping off of the wrong guys. It felt like they also don't have a point of attack defender good enough for Tyrese Maxey. He actually only finished with 24, but like, I mean, they struggled against him.
Well, I mean, once Tyrese Maxey was starting to do that, Kyle Lowry was like, can I get involved? And they still did not have the point of attack. Yeah, it felt like the rotations for me, I was looking at it, and it felt like the rotations they were bad. You are very right in that regard. But it felt like that was a factor of what you said there. Like, they don't, as much as they have increased the foot speed of their perimeter defenders, they still do not have the perimeter defender that can stay in front of Tyrese Maxey. So it felt like they were trying to make sure that there was a help body in front of him to make sure that he did not get downhill, but they did not fly to those shooters well enough on the other end of it. And so, yeah, no, that absolutely factored in. Look, the thing about the turnovers was I felt like it was also a factor of the Sixers seemed to, and Nick Nurse seemed to take note of what the Pacers and the Cavs seemed to show as what might be the new way of trying to guard Luka Doncic in these Mavericks, right? We know that a lot of teams have tried way. Yeah, I guess that's fair. A lot of other teams had gotten to the point where they're like, we will blitz Luka, and they realize that is a very, very bad time doing that. And the Cavs and the Pacers were like, all right, we are going to put somebody on you, but we're going to play you one up. We're not allowing you to pass, though. We're not allowing that dynamic passing to hurt us. And so you take all these other guys out of the game, and you go, if Luka Doncic can beat us solo, go ahead and do it. And not when they're playing, not when they're getting all these boards and getting up another, probably like 10 more shots than you do as a team, right? Like, I think that ended up playing a big role. And then they were making sure with that help on the backside, they were in those passing lanes. And that's why it felt like the defensive shift in general, all the way around, led to those turnovers. And so I pair all those things together, and that felt like that was a big factor for the Mavs.
I think Derrick Jones Jr. did a better job on Maxey in the fourth quarter. Maxey played all 12 fourth quarter minutes. Mavs did start to double him a little bit too, and so that took the ball out of his hands. But he had one shot attempt in the fourth quarter. Derrick Jones Jr. I think played a big part of that. So that adjustment I thought was good to play him instead of Josh Green. And then Derrick Jones Jr. gave you enough on offense. It felt like
5 for 5.
5 threes. I mean, that was a great game, a real good bounce back game that you needed from a Derrick Jones Jr. because he had been playing really bad lately. Really,
and
really bad lately.
Great timing considering obviously Tim not shooting well. PJ did not have a good shooting night either. So you needed somebody out there knocking down shots, right? Like, because otherwise it would have been really bad when it came to not allowing Luka to impact the game with his passing. Because where's the ball supposed to go otherwise?
And in this game, like what I talk about the turnovers, they could have overcome the turnovers. Look what they did in the fourth quarter. They turned it up. They started to play. Their sense of urgency was there, and they outscored them 40-30. It's like it was in them, like it was within them. And so that's why I go back to coaching, because if it's within you, if it's in you, if there's something that can be unlocked, if a chakra has to be unlocked for you to get there, like isn't the coach supposed to know which thing to like which pressure point to push to get that chakra to unlock? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? Aren't they supposed to be able to pull the levers and figure it out with their team? And it just doesn't seem like that angle is there. He treats them like, professionals, but then he's also hands off. It feels like a lot of the time. And at a certain point, like on a certain level, that's good. I think a Kyrie and a Luka like that. But then at a certain point, they also like to win games. And if you don't win the games, how are you holding them accountable? How are you holding them to? It's just Reggie. I just can't.
Yeah, no, it was a very frustrating game to watch all the way around because it felt like, in a way, are we going to say the word? It felt like he got outcoached, like very, very plainly.
Oh,
like, it felt like
that's not even. I wouldn't even whisper that. I would shout that in the AAC
because, like, the things that I'm talking about, I think like we both had different things that we were focusing on clearly, but both of them pointed to the idea that Nick Nurse and his staff came in with a very clear plan on how they were going to attack these Mavericks, and their boys went out and executed that in a very, very strong way. And you cannot say the same thing for the Dallas Mavericks, which I think ultimately alludes to what you're talking about there. Like how highly do we regard Nick Nurse as a coach in this league? And however highly that is, whatever that is, I imagine you look over at Jason Kidd and you go, not reaching that level. And I think that ends up to becoming it's becoming a problem because what did we talk about at the trade deadline, right? You now have the pieces and you have bought the groceries, the proverbial groceries. Now it is time for your coach to cook. And right against the better opponents that you have had, right? The type of opponents that are going to ultimately dictate success when we start talking about the playoffs. The playoffs are all really predicated on this chess match of moves and adjustments. You're not seeing that. You're not seeing that being productive in the way that you really want to.
Another thing that I got that I think Mavs fans got what they wanted, but didn't really actually get the answer to is, all right, where does the other offense come from? If they're going to just play Luka and Kyrie straight up, and they can go cook one-on-one, but you got to have somebody else to take advantage of some of that, attention and like take advantage of some of the opportunities out there. Tim Hardaway Jr. played 14 minutes, played 4 minutes in the second half.
Yeah,
I mean, he can't be the scapegoat anymore for a game like this, right? Because he just didn't play. He's bad. Jason Kidd, after the game, said Timmy's shooting bad. He's not playing well. He's like several times he mentioned that, and then he also mentioned I'm not going to turn my back on somebody just because they're not shooting well, and so that is maybe to the frustration of some Mavs fans. But he didn't play him, so it's not like he's playing him 30, 35 minutes out there, still just throwing him out there. To me, I think one of the problems was they didn't have anything to turn to after that. Okay, what are you doing instead? What's the all right, well, Tim's not working, so let's pull Tim. Let's do something instead. And Exum played 8 minutes total.
Yeah.
He, didn't really even get a chance to like go out there and do anything. Hardy didn't get any minutes at all. And so I asked him after the game, I said, Luka and Kyrie both had good stat lines, a lot of turnovers. Do you feel like you're running out of options to turn to get the offense going when those guys have it and nobody else does? And this was his answer to me. It's just understanding that those two guys, we did have a lot of turnovers. When we are 1-to-1 assisted turnovers, that's not going to be a recipe for success. We have to be better. We're a team that doesn't turn the ball over. If you're not getting shots, that's going to put a lot of pressure on your defense. We have to be better with the ball, and we'll be better on Tuesday. So he didn't answer the question. So to me, that says that, yes, he is concerned that he's running out of other options because he just completely didn't answer the question at all. I wish they would have gone to Hardy. I said this during the game several times that this is one of those weird games. It's noon. You need this game. You just need you need new energy. You got an 11-0 start to start the game, and then you just come out completely flat after that. You needed a different energy. It's the same thing that happened in the Thunder game when they had the 30-0 run. What did they do in that 30-0 run? Kid put in Omax and Lawson because the team was just out of it. And he's like, all right, let me just try something. He got new energy from those guys. And they needed something. They needed to put something in there. And instead, he just went with the same, cast of characters and just hoped that Luka and Kyrie would pull him out of it. And that's kind of been the game plan for a while. Luka's the scheme. He's the game plan. Okay, Luka and Kyrie, just pull us out of this. And they didn't try anything else to try and really get them out of it. They didn't really try a zone or anything until later, which I guess a zone wouldn't have mattered because they Sixers shot under 30% from three. It's not like they were bombing from three either. All right, coming up, let's talk about the adjustments that were not made, their sense of urgency. Kid had another quote that I thought was interesting about the Mavs' sense of urgency and where is it? What are the goals for the season and are they going to reach those? We'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Quiiiz. Quiiiz daily fantasy made easy. Go check out Quiiiz and see what's available for you. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players and pick more or less on their stat projections. So go check it out, see what they have for you. It's demon time on Quiiiz. You can now win 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks and turn $10 into $1,000. That's pretty cool. Go check that out. They have different like demons and goblins are the exciting way to play at Quiiiz. They've got little for example, Jalen Suggs against the Pistons starting in about 25 minutes. 3.5 assists, more or less. I can only pick more on that one, and so I can pick more on him. I'm gonna go. Here's another one. Isaiah Stewart, our old friend, Beef Stew, 7.5 rebounds. I only can pick the more on that one, so I'll pick more on that one. Then Wemby blocked shots, 4.5 against the Pacers. Yeah, give me more on that one. If I do that, I put down $20. I can win 430. That's how the demons work on that and the goblins. So go check it out on Quiiiz. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Reggie. Mavs are running out of excuses. They're running out of options. They lose this game to the Sixers. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on the third option offensively, because Jason Kidd again mentioned our best defense is a good offense. The turnovers really hurt them a ton. They didn't get good offense going. And their offensive rating was only 116.3. Like, they're getting arrested for how bad their offense is compared to what it should be at this point, which is why you can hear the sirens out there. But 116 offense is average right now. They can't afford to be average on offense, especially against the Sixers, who have been the 28th best defense in the NBA since Embiid going down. Like, they couldn't find a third heat in this game.
Yeah, and what's funny is you mentioned the idea of Josh Green not playing all that well. But one thing that I did feel like, and I mean, look, I would have loved to see Jaden Hardy as well. It felt like at some points that they needed a certain level of like catalyst of energy, a guy that could, run and jump, right? It felt like they needed somebody that could do those types of things. And I felt like Hardy, Green would have been helpful in that regard in certain aspects. But yeah, no, like that those were things that were not turned to. But at this point, like, I think in some ways we're also picking from suboptimal options in those ways. We knew that this team got better at the trade deadline, but we knew that this team still was not like perfect in that regard. And yeah, no, you are in those instances where you look around and you go, hey man, you don't have an incredible third option. This is a third option by committee, as Jason Kidd basically alluded to at one point. And so somebody has to be the guy that ends up, just popping in that day. And so with that, if that's going to be the case, you do need to be on top of when it comes to like your top two guys. They got to be on their grind, knowing that you can't depend on the idea that one of these other guys steps up. And I think that's where the turnovers got to be a problem, is that you are losing possessions in a game where you might lose some possessions just because PJ is not hot and he's putting up a three that you guys aren't going to get a board on.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. I just think they needed to turn to something else. Like, because all right, this is happening to our team right now. We're being sloppy with the ball and all that. You've got to turn to somebody else and something else. Maybe there's an injury that we don't know about with, only playing 8 minutes, because I thought he was supposed to be somebody to come in and at least give him a little spark offensively. He's not going to hit a ton of threes on you, but he'll come in and hit a couple of floaters and penetrate and like do that kind of stuff.
It seemed like he was kind of getting clamped up as well in the ways that did not have a lot of free movement. And I think that's one of the tough things when we talk about like not having another ball handler, another guy that's going to like play make. Because when you're playing a team that, again, admittedly not very good defensively, but I think the athleticism ended up being like a something that they could lean on, the Sixers. And then when you have that and other guys aren't shooting well, you're not able to get around them. Like at that point, it was just the only guys that we have that can play make through this are the two guys that we know of.
Yeah, and it's like it just comes back down to the whole scheme and the whole game plan is Luka and Kyrie save us.
Yeah.
It's like that. Lead us and save us. And like Kyrie had a rough start and then finished the game, I thought, pretty well. 28 points, 10 of 20 from the field. Like he only got a free throw line 3 times, but that was kind of not a fault of his own. There was a couple of plays late in there. He should have gotten to the line. I asked Kid also about the sense of urgency with this team and if he thinks that it wasn't there because he had talked about earlier, Tim Cato had asked him, why didn't you get the same kind of energy and sense of urgency that you got in the fourth quarter that to the rest of the game? And so Kid admitted like, hey, we didn't get that. We did not get that kind of energy and urgency. So I asked him if he thinks this team doesn't have the sense of urgency considering where they are in the standings. You mentioned the sense of desperation in that fourth quarter. Is there a sense that this team doesn't feel that sense of desperation where they are in the standings and the time of the season?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is new. We got 2 guys who have taken on the world, in Kai and Luka, and understand what it means to be hunted and when you're playing for your life. Some of those guys in that locker room haven't been in this situation, so we're going through that right now, and we're trying to help them understand that you got to try to win every possession. You can't just take 1 or 2 off, and as a team, we'll be stronger by going through this. Every team that goes through a part of the season where they struggle, where things just seem like they're not going to go right, it's just a test. The game test, basketball will test you to see if you're a true believer. And so in our locker room, we got a lot of guys that believe, and we're going to work our way through this.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here. Do you buy that idea that Luka and Kyrie have been to the mountaintop? They've been to, in these big moments, and that the rest of these guys just don't. And so that's where their lack of urgency and lack of energy kind of came from in a game like this.
Who are we talking about in that instance, right? Like, who are we talking about? The newcomers? Like, are we immediately saying it's PJ and Gafford? Because it feels like a lot of the guys that you have in here were either on this team when you were trying to make your ascent in the Western Conference a couple of years ago.
Nobody really playing. It's Luka and Maxey are the only ones that were playing in that run, really. But
yeah, Green didn't get a lot of burn in that. I mean,
I still remember him dribbling in a circle in front of Rudy Gobert. Like I will always remember that.
Derrick Jones Jr. has been some places. Tim Hardaway. He
was in those Clippers series, and that was kind of it.
I was like, at this point, he should have some level of idea. I don't know, like. I understand the idea that every team is going to have their rough patches. It feels like you've got enough experience on this team that should be able to like pull you out of that. It's also having a coach that has a certain level of experience, but maybe that's an unreasonable expectation, right? Maybe everybody has to learn it on their own time, but it ain't nobody trying to hear that is basically where I land in this place, right? Like, whether it's true or whether it's not, ain't nobody trying to hear that in this moment.
But hey,
you gotta ask them. I'm just a coach.
I don't buy it. I buy one thing in it. I'll say that. I buy one thing about what he said. We're trying to teach them you have to win every possession. You can't just take 1 or 2 off. As a team, we'll be stronger by going through this. I do believe that they do have to teach them how to get not take 1 or 2 possessions off. It's hard, and it's hard to learn. And that's when you talk about having to play playoff level basketball and having to play winning basketball and teaching a PJ Washington who has been not on a winning team for 4 out of the 5 years he's been in the league. Right. Or Gafford has not been, has played 5 playoff games and that's it on a Wizards team forever ago. I don't think it even, but then you got Derrick Jones Jr., like you said, Josh Green, Tim Hardaway. They don't have a ton of playoff experience outside of the 2 stars in this, which is why I guess he's leaning on them a little bit more. And even some of the guys we're talking about, the guys could they have played 1 or 2 of these other guys to give them a different energy, different look? Hardy, right. Omax, AJ Lawson, they're not bringing that either. And so I do buy that you got to teach that a little bit. But man, if their sense of urgency is not there now, then this team is not as good as we had hoped that they were going to be coming out of that break. Also, does that not feel like something where if you have a catalyst on a team, right? If you have somebody that's like, I'm not letting none of y'all be in that place, that shifts it. Now, I understand that now we're talking about roster construction and all those things. The dude that keeps coming to mind, funny enough, is Udonis Haslem. But
I don't even know if that's like a full
He was a real player. No, he was a real player. He was an actual player. Is that
no?
what
I hear you, but like just the guy that goes, no, I don't like wherever you are. Like this is not enough. And we had this conversation before. It feels like they don't have necessarily one of those guys that's going to hold everybody to account in that way. And so it seems like you're going to have to, have that develop within your ranks.
It's an on the court leader, and it's somebody that, everybody can like a vet that everybody's going to galvanize around. Kind of felt like Lowry was sort of that for the Sixers in this game.
For sure.
They had that guy that was there, and you'd think Luka and Kyrie, but it kind of has to not be your star kind of too. It also has to be like a guy in the trenches with the rest of them that like kind of plays, that kind of doesn't. And it does feel like they haven't had one of those guys, but this team should have won this game. I mean, case in like end all be all, like they had more talent. They were at home. They had more to play for. This team should have won this game absolutely and didn't and fell short. And so now you look forward into this week and go, all right, well, now we've got the Pacers on Tuesday. Jason Kidd says they'll be better. We'll see what happens there. Then you've got the Heat on Thursday. That's not a cakewalk. Pistons. I'm not going to say anything about that game because I have jinxed the Mavericks far too many times this season. And that's on Saturday. And so, you got to be able to, it feels like every game is a must win now because they've got to go 16-5, I think, the rest of the way to win 50 games. You've got to stay out of the 9-10 in the play-in because that's just too tough. You're not completely out of it. You're a game and a half out of Phoenix, but they've got a really hard schedule. The Mavericks don't coming up, but you've got to just keep taking care of business. And that's where they are right now, running out of excuses. And Jason Kidd is absolutely running out of excuses for this Mavs team. There you go. Go listen to Reggie. When are you on this week?
Every night, 7 to 11. Well, Friday it's 7, just an hour, but Monday through Thursday, 7 to 11. There it is.
Listen Monday through Thursday and then take a happy hour with Reggie.
Let's do it.
Go check that out on 105.3 The Fan. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked on Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.